Krishna.
All right.
No bugs. The bugs are all dead at this time of year.
All righty.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Kirivadodaude Gopijana Vallabha Kirivadodaude Yasodanandana Vrajachanarandana Yasodanandana Vrajachanarandana Yamuna Tera Panachare Yamuna Tera Panachare Jai Ho Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Ho Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivadodaude Gopijana Vallabha Girivadodaude Yasodanandana Brajachanarandana Yasodanandana Brajachanarandana Yamuna Tera Vanachate Yamuna Tera Vanachate Jai Ho Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jai Ho Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravidakacharya also Tada Satashi Shimad His Divine Grace Abhaya Charanara Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Purava Nichananda Shidwe Digadadha Shiva Siddhi Gaur Bhakta Vrindikijai Shri Shri Radhakrishna Gopi Govardhana Shayam Kunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Kijai Vrindavan Kijai Maturadam Kijai Chekada Sami Kijai Yamunamai Kijai Shrimati Tulasi Devi Kijai Samaveda Bhakta Vrindikijai Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glories is some of the devotees, all glories is some of the devotees. All glories is some of the devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namani. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharni Nivashesha Shinyavadi Paschacha Dejatarni. So, reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th Canto, 22nd chapter, text 12. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Tasya Tat Svelitam Vrishva Gopyaha Prema Pariplutaha Rikditaha Preksha Janyonyang Jata Asa Na Niryayuhu Tasya Tatshvelitam Drishtva Gopya Prema Pariplutaha Ridita Preksha Kanchanyonyam Jatahasana Niryayu Tashatat Krelitam Drishtva Gopya Prema Paraplutaha Ridita Preksha Chanyonyam Jatahasana Niryayu Tashatakshvelitam Drisva Gopya Prema Pariplutaha Ridita Preksha Chanyonyam Jatahasana Niryayu. Okay. Tasya, his, tat, that, Shvelitam, joking behavior. Drishva, seen. Gopyaha, the gopis. Prema pariplutaha, fully immersed in pure love of Godhead. Riditaha, embarrassed. Preksha, glancing. Cha, and. Anyonyam, upon one another. Jataha saha, beginning to laugh. Na niryayahu, they did not come out. Translation, seeing how Krishna was joking with them, the gopis became fully immersed in love for him, and as they glanced at each other, they began to laugh and joke among themselves, even in their embarrassment, but still they did not come out of the water. You can repeat. Seeing how Krishna was joking with them, the gopis became fully immersed in love for him. And as they glanced at each other, they began to laugh and joke among themselves, even in their embarrassment. But still they did not come out of the water. So, purport, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains this verse as follows. The gopis were from most respectable families, and they might have argued with Krishna, "Why don't you simply leave our clothes on the bank of the river and go away?" Krishna might have replied. "But there are so many of you that some of the girls might take clothes belonging to another." The gopis would reply, "We are honest and never steal anything. We never touch another's property." Then Krishna would say, "If that's true, then simply come and get your clothes. What's the difficulty?" When the gopis saw Krishna's determination, they were filled with loving ecstasy. Although embarrassed, they were overjoyed to receive such attention from Krishna. He was joking with them as if they were his wives or girlfriends, and the gopis' only desire was to achieve such a relationship with him. At the same time, they were embarrassed to be seen naked by him, but still they could not help laughing at his joking words and even began to joke among themselves, one gopi urging another, "Go ahead, you go first, and let us see if Krishna plays any tricks on you, then we will go later." So, anyway, we'll read the commentaries, they're rather short. Seeing Krishna's secret joking, the gopis became overcome with love. To make Krishna happy, I think we should not be so self-conscious. Thinking like this, they all began to discuss among themselves in bliss. Glancing at one another, they became embarrassed. Then one said to another, "O lotus-eyed one, he is calling you." The other answered, "O beautiful-faced one, you go and let him drink the nectar." In this way they joked amongst themselves, but stood in the water and did not move. Jiva Goswami. Since these were special gopis, they by their nature had deep prema pada plutaha, but understanding that he was joking, they became further immersed in the rasa of prema. By their nature as girls, they were embarrassed. With embarrassment and joy, they looked at each other and laughed, but they did not come out. Sanatana Goswami. Since these were special gopis, they had by their nature had deep prema pada plutaha, but understanding that he was joking, they became further immersed in the rasa of prema. They looked at each other and laughed, but they did not come out because looking at each other they were embarrassed, or because they were filled with prema they shyly smiled. They looked at each other in order to find agreement among them in not coming out, or though they wanted to come out, looking at each other they became embarrassed because they were naked. Looking at each other, because of that, they smiled and did not come out. Since these were special gopis, they by their nature had deep prema, the same thing, prema pada plutataha. But understanding he was joking, they became further immersed in the rasa of prema. By their nature as girls, they were embarrassed. With embarrassment and joy, they looked at each other and laughed, but they did not come out. So again, the verse. Tashatat kshiletam drishtra gopya prema parit vridita prekshakshanyom yam jatahasa nanirayahu. So Om Gana Timidanda Sha Gadanjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmeditam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha. So I was actually thinking about this in terms of like the modern culture. If this happened in today's world, the girls would come out of the water immediately because they were cold. So why are the girls acting so shy like this? It's ridiculous. I'm speaking facetiously, of course. They should just come out. What's there to be embarrassed about? I mean, we've been to so many rainbow festivals where the girls and boys walk around in their birthday suits. Those of you who don't know what a birthday suit is, that means the clothes you were given at the time of birth. Of course, Krishna's birthday suit was quite different. Krishna actually had full clothes on. Not full clothes, but he had earrings and everything like that. But the rest of everybody, they're just born naked, and anyway, that's life. So the reason for that is it's inculcated in the culture. It's actually a cultural thing. Of course, there's some genetic thing too, or part of the body, but it's in part of this mentality when one gets the body. But it's basically inculcated in the culture that people should wear clothes. And actually, you see so many primitive cultures where they don't wear clothes. I remember when I was young, looking at National Geographic magazines in the old days. And they would show all these primitive cultures, the natives walking around without any clothes on. And I thought, that's really cool. Why do we have all these cultural barriers, Why don't you just be au natural? It's a little French there. And the reason is, I'll explain the reason. There's actually a good reason. It's not that, this Vedic culture just like is keeping us from expressing our real selves, feeling natural. And Prabhupada they shouldn't have criticized people at the nudist camp when he went there. He told them they were going to become like trees in the next life. And actually, he found some of our leaders in the Krishna conscious movement in nudist camps, which is really interesting. I'm not going to mention any names. It wasn't me, because I wasn't there. But there's a reason for that, and there's a reason for the girls being shy, and there's a reason for chastity. Now, one reason is that we find in the Vedic culture that there's a very important stress on protecting different persons or different categories of persons in society, isn't it? Like cows, old people like me, Brahmins, women, and children. I think I got them all. So, because these particular entities, and it's not that this is going to be a chauvinistic class, don't worry. These particular entities, and I'm old too, so I'm not against old people. It's not an anti-old people class. They can be exploited by unscrupulous people. Just like, let's talk about my mother. She's old. Hopefully. She's old. Older than me, hopefully. Even though when I talk to her and she asks me how old I am, I say I'm 100. And she's only 92, So, for example, let's talk about my mother. Before she became a little bit challenged in her mental activities, acuity, she was getting phone calls from people all the time telling her how she had won the lottery. And she was just, they just asked her, please send in this money to register your lottery ticket or whatever it was. Or it wasn't exactly a lottery, the book club or something like that. And she was getting ready to send the money, and we had to stop her each time. Because, she just didn't have the ability. I'm not saying that women don't have the ability. That's not the point. Because people, they see, in this society, people see those who are vulnerable, and they try to exploit them. And actually, the problem with the male member of the species, this is going to be something bad against males, is that they're like gorillas. 90% of them. And why do I say like gorillas? Okay. Once upon a time, I was talking to one of my friends who used to work in the zoo. taking care of the gorillas. And she was telling me that, I said, what are gorilla families like? I was asking her. She said, the gorilla families, there's one big macho man, and he gets all these, like, macho ladies, cute little gorillas. Gorilla Itos. and he has, like, 20 of them around him. But what happens is, there's no moral principles because it's all based on just lust. What happens is that when one of his sons grows up and becomes stronger than Dad, then guess what happens with Dad? He hits the road. Dad hits the road and the son takes over. Even his mother is there. That's pretty obnoxious. Not for a gorilla, it's not, because gorillas don't have to read the Manu Samhita and understand regulative principles. But that's really the nature of men. Most men in this world, they're just like that. Even one of my disciples in Germany was telling me that sometimes she goes out to the store and then comes upon another gorilla who goes after her. Because it's just lust. Let me give you some Vedic stories that illustrate this point. Let's talk about the story when Krishna kidnapped Rukmini. Rukmini was extremely beautiful, and all these men had shown up for her Swayamvara to win her. And so Krishna comes, and she comes out of the temple, first of all. And these men hadn't seen her before, but they heard about how beautiful she was. And as soon as she comes out of the temple, they all fall off their horses. Isn't that stupid? Because it was pretty good, because that way Krishna didn't have anyone interfering with him when he put Rukmini on the chariot. He just drove away, and they were just dumbfounded. So, because that's just the nature of the beast, so to speak, and women don't ordinarily understand that, because the women approach everything with not every lady, but seeing that there's a guy who's going to protect her and maintain. This is this psychology: protect, maintain, and the man's thinking, there's a piece of meat. Just like oh my God, I should mention, a political leader who should remain nameless to protect the guilty. He talked about how he could grab women in different private parts and everything, and nobody would say anything. It's just like gorilla consciousness, isn't it? I'm not just making this up. And then you have, here's some more Vedic stories. Let's get away from the modern stories. Then you have the story of Ravana, who would just see these girls and just grab them. And one day he was flying over a mountain, and then there was this beautiful girl, Vedavati. It was an expansion of Lakshmi, expansion of Sita Devi. And she was meditating to get Narayan as her husband. And so he was flying over, and then he saw her and went, wow! Boom! Landed his airplane, and he said, hello! You're coming with me, baby. Almost like that Meet Tarzan, New Jane. Anyone's heard of that before? It's a Tarzan movie. And he grabs her, and they go swinging through the trees together. Anyway, so Robin, he basically grabs this poor girl, and she says, I just want to have Narayan as my husband. I'm just meditating, performing austerities. He grabs her by the hair. Grabs her by the hair. She makes her hand like a knife and cuts the hair off. And she says, I've been defiled by you. And then she basically immolates herself. She goes into a yoga trance and a fire, and she says, I'm going to be reborn and destroy you. So, isn't this gorilla consciousness? And here's more stories about gorilla consciousness. And these are demigods we're talking about now with gorilla consciousness. Be careful, ladies. That the story of Devahuti, interesting story. So Devahuti was very much protected. I mean, she was kept, very princess. She was kept in the palace and basically protected so the men wouldn't lust after her. So she had a tennis court on the roof of the palace. It was tennis. Anyway, whatever game they played, cricket or tennis or bocce. You don't know what bocce is. No, anyway. So she was playing on the roof of the palace, and she was, just playing this game. And the demigods, they were flying by in their airplanes, and Gandharvas, like demigods. And they fell out of their airplanes. Isn't that gorilla consciousness, even amongst the demigods? Can you imagine that? I mean, I can imagine what it would be like just to walk down the street and have people leer at me. Because they probably like it. But anyway, just like there goes a piece of meat down the street. I mean, that's the psychology. Sometimes people think this romantic way, like, isn't it? It's a psychology. And here, I'll give you more stories that illustrate the point. Shantanu. Okay, here's Shantanu. Or he's by the Ganges River. Ganga Devi comes out of the river. Doesn't even ask her anything. Basically, it's just like, hey, marry me. And he's so bewildered, it's really like bewildered. And then she says, well, if I marry you, you have to agree never to argue with me. And he says, yes, will do. And then he ends up getting 7 of his kids killed before he can't take it anymore because he's made that deal. I mean, there's so many stories about things like that. I mean, modern day world too, which I'm not going to bring up another story about the President of the United States about this. And then, let's see, what was the story? And there's another interesting story too, where Shukadev Goswami was running away from home, and there were naked girls bathing in the river. But because he was not of that quality, the girls didn't bother to cover themselves, because he just saw Pandita Samadarshana. He saw everybody equal. He had no lust. And Prabhupada described that that's actually the quality of a pure devotee. The pure devotee has no lust. So, whereas his father, of course, I'm not saying his father, Vyasadeva, had any lust, but because his father was in the Grahastha ashram, the Grahastha ashram naturally have to distinguish between male and female. Also, sannyasis should definitely distinguish between male and female. So, but because his father, because of social issues, his father had to distinguish between male and female, so the girls became embarrassed when they saw Srila Vyasadeva, and not embarrassed when they saw Shukadev Goswami. It's interesting, isn't it? Because he was free. Shukadev Goswami was free from those distinctions. So, therefore, it is very much stressed, the protection of ladies. Let's see if I can tell another story about this. And, of course, we don't want to go to the extreme that they used to go to in India, like Prabhupada described about his mother. His mother would go out unless she was on a palanquin, carried by 4 men. That would be nice. We should have all the ladies. You should arrange that, Adi, for your wife. Like 4, not men, eunuchs, to carry your wife around. Of course, nowadays it's actually easy. You just do shopping on the internet. It's actually quite much more chaste, isn't it? Nobody will see you. And you just like put one of these funny faces on, so it doesn't look like you have any attraction features. So therefore, this is very much stressed in the Vedic system, and one's reputation, I'm not saying we can copy this, but in the scenario we're talking about with the gopis in the river was based upon chastity. And so let's go to Krishna's pastime. So once upon a time, Radharani was very worried about her reputation and being considered unchaste. And she went to Krishna. And she said to Krishna, this is getting too much for me. Why? Because people are making rumors that I'm not chaste. I'm hanging around with you, Krishna. And so Krishna says, don't worry. I will actually take care of this. And so then Krishna acted like he had like a headache and was very sick. And then he was diagnosed by another doctor who was actually an expansion of Krishna, who said, this headache can only be cured by a lady, the most chaste lady in Vrindavan, who can, basically the test of chastity was to carry a water pot with like 1,000 holes in it, sprinkled with the water from the water pot with 1,000 holes. There was carried by a lady who was crossing the Yamuna River on some hair. And somehow or other was assured that if the lady was the most chaste, she'd be able to do that. So the first candidate to try that out was Kutila. And of course she fell immediately right in her face in the river. And that was kind of embarrassing. And so then, to make a long story short, Radharani actually did that. She was able to cross and carry this water pot, and then it was understood that she was the most chaste lady, like that. And it's described that actually the reason the water pot didn't leak out in spite of having 1,000 holes is that Krishna manifested himself, I guess, and covered all the holes somehow or other, so the water wouldn't come out of the water pot. So in this way, Radharani's reputation was upheld. It was very nice. So in other words, there's a reason for concern for reputation. There's a reason for concern for protecting ladies. It's not just like some Vedic ancient thing that is no longer relevant in the modern world. Of course, it may not be relevant for many people in the modern world, but it's actually important. So one may say, why not? Well, why not just let the ladies be unprotected, and be exploited by men? Well, that's pretty cruel. And also another reason is that there'll be so much unwanted progeny. And either unwanted progeny or abortions and things like that. And so why is it unwanted progeny? Well, they come without being wanted. But also because the parents didn't have the right conception, or conception can be used in different ways, didn't have the right consciousness at the time of conception, the children will have that particular consciousness. I mean, can you imagine what sort of consciousness people have when they're conceiving a child nowadays? They're probably drunk, intoxicated, full of lust, and therefore they're attracting a soul that has all these bad qualities. No wonder, so many Ravanas and are being born. Isn't it? I mean, it's a wonder. I mean, it's a wonder anybody is half decent in Kali Yuga. Isn't it because, people are just like lust, like animalistic, drunk, smoking dope. What else? Angry. And, what kind of creatures are going to come out? Creatures from the deep or something like that. Is going to come out as a result of that. And it's true. We see that. And, of course, all of us, many of us, including me, were born with those particular qualities. Not all of you, of course, but me. I was born with all those qualities. That's why we say we were born in the darkness of ignorance. Like that. What were our parents thinking of? Oh, my God. So then, that's one of the big reasons. But also, people should be protected. That's polite society. You protect the Brahmins, you protect the old people, you protect the women, you protect the cows, and you protect the children. And we've seen, even in ISKCON, we have to have different divisions just for the protection of these entities, because there's a tendency to exploit. We have a cow minister. Not that the minister is a cow, but sounds like it. And he makes sure that the devotees in their sentimentality don't just like start breeding cows because they want to eat a lot of paneer. And it's happened. It's happened that at one of the farms that I manage, they haven't overbred cows, but they've been subjected to the difficulties of other farms because the other farms who overbred cows dumped their cows out that they couldn't take care of in the middle of the night at our farm. All of a sudden, we woke up in the morning, there were 50 cows there. Because people are sentimental. So the cows have to be protected against the sentimentality of people. So we have a minister of cows, or cow minister, whatever. And then we have a whole division in North America to guard against pastoral abuse. Never did we actually think when I joined the Hare Krishna movement that we would have a problem like that. We never thought that we would have any of these entities being abused. Pastoral abuse. That means, someone takes a position, what is it? Power corrupts, absolute power corrupts. Absolutely, and you get lusty, and you steal and cheat. We've had that in our movement. We have people take the temple and sell it to keep the money. So we need a program to protect the temple even against the temple president. This has really happened. In Hawaii, actually happened. So we need like these trustees. You need so many systems to protect everything. Pastoral abuse basically to protect the women or others. And we've had so many cases of it, and it's quite ugly. Of course, it's happened in the church, too. It's happened in every organization, political organizations, whatever. Even it was described that Kennedy, who was very much respected, or was very much respected, had practically had a revolving door for all the women who were coming to see him, including Marilyn Monroe, great Acharya. Anyway, and, he had a mistress in the White House and everything like that. He's just like, what? All these heroes with clay feet. Like that. So anyway, in ISKCON we have pastoral abuse, we have a child abuse division, and so we're going to need something so that the old people are not abused, neglected like that too. Whew. That's really important too. Of course, that's why we set up here like this systems in New Goloka, for taking care of people who are leaving their bodies or are old and things like that, and somehow or other we're doing that here. So this is very, very important in society to set these different systems up, protecting old people, cows, women. And so one of the ways that women are protected is by the system of chastity. I know chastity sounds like really weird and old-timey and everything like that, but it's actually to protect the ladies and to have good population. Anyway, So, with that controversial class, so anybody have any questions or comments? Yes, Mother or Mother.
When are we going to start having a system to protect
Brahmanas. Okay, yeah. So yeah, Brahmanas should be protected too. So there has to be a system to protect Brahmanas, and there has to be a system to ascertain who is actually a Brahmin. Like Prabhupada said, if someone doesn't have the qualities of a Brahmin, you know what they're called? Sacred thread holders.
He is reminding me, Kumarupa said that he liked to take care of cows. He said, you're supposed to protect Brahmins and cows. He said, I don't know who's a Brahmana, but I don't know who's a cow.
Yeah, it's easier to see. Easier to see who's a cow. So anyway, so this it's important. It's not just something that's old, you know, an old system, but there, you know, obviously we can't wholesale take all these different procedures like the Palanquin and Institute in America. But at least we can put tinted windows on the cars. So I'm just joking.
Actually, another question that I have for you
Yeah.
is, you know, it's described in Vrindavana like the young gopis would cross the Yamuna to sell their milk products.
Yes.
And they were groups. They were going in groups.
Yeah, they were in groups, so that was their protection.
But still, there was no palanquin.
No, there was no palanquin. That's why I'm not suggesting a palanquin for you.
Well, we even had the fruit seller. She was going before.
It's safe. You know, the society, because everybody, but the women, you know, the women were protected. And actually, yeah, let me tell this interesting story. That I just heard the story that Prabhupada told that there was this beggar on the street, you know, really poor guy who was just begging, and he was ugly as hell. Prabhupada, you heard the story? He was ugly as hell. But his wife was always with him, taking care of him, and he was protecting his wife. What? Yeah, something like that. You know, anyway, so Prabhupada said, but even though he was so ugly, the wife was with him, she was chaste. I mean, this chaste means loyal. Okay, let's not use that term, chaste, because it's not politically correct. But let's use the word loyal. And this loyalty is not so prominent in Kali Yuga anymore. Loyalty towards, not only towards the husband and husband towards the wife, wife towards the husband, but loyalty as a disciple to the spiritual master, or loyalty to one's parents. It's interesting. We're dealing with that now. But anyways, so it's a very important point. I mean, and one story about loyalty I wanted to bring out in class was the story about Hanuman being loyal to his Ishtadevata, who is Lord Ram. So even when Hanuman was asked by Krishna to come and see him, he refused because Ram had not told him. And then when Krishna took the form of Ram, then Hanuman actually agreed to come. So anyway, so this is really the point. There's a reason for these different systems of protection of women. It's not just that we're just old fogies, you know, just trying to just institute something that's no longer relevant. So, yes.
I'm just thinking it was, when we were running the group here many years ago, we were doing some research into the African societies before the European
Yeah.
colonization. And in Central Africa, Europeans found societies where it was so safe that women could walk in brothels because there were basically no rapes.
Yeah.
And shopkeepers could just leave their shops open
That's nice.
and nobody would steal. And they're saying the women would wear huge gold jewelry, and they would be safe from. So there, I mean, that was even not long ago, but there were societies on the planet where people were actually protected.
Mm.
And it just struck me how that was in Central Africa, you know, because I grew up hearing that everybody had to go to tribal to do these things. But they were actually more civilized than Europeans, if you
Oh yeah, Europeans were not very civilized at all.
anyway, I just found it really interesting.
Yeah.
And there's still places in the world
Prabhupada actually spoke about when he was young. He said in India, I mean, even in the early days when Prabhupada said that a woman could walk at night in Delhi and there'd be no danger. But nowadays, because whatever, there's a loss of the culture. It's extremely, Delhi is the rape capital of the world, basically. So, okay. Yeah. Yeah, the values that protect them against their